Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
We'd like to welcome everybody on the line for today's Wellness Wednesday on adrenal fatigue. We're going to be starting here in another few minutes, so just hang tight. There will be copies of this presentation available for download on your account at myoriant.com. After the presentation today, but just wanted to welcome you on the line and tell you we'll be ready to get going here in just a few minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's Wellness Wednesday webinar. We are excited to have everyone here on the line with us. Our presenter today is Coach Emily. She is one of our Orion Health coaches, and she's presented with us here before. And we're excited to have her. She's kind of the resident guru on adrenal fatigue, and she's had some personal experience with this that she'll hopefully share with us as well. So, Emily, just real quick, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. I always have to hold my breath and make sure that the audio and everything's working out all right. So we're glad to have you here with us. Just a few housekeeping, of course, is the 5 points. That'll be on your account later today. You can see that under your health promotion tab. Also, a recording of today's presentation will be available on the website, myoriant.com, as well as a PDF copy of the slides. And also, we may get some questions through the webinar about any additional information if this is something you're interested in, want to find some more resources, learn some more. And the final slide in our presentation today lists a bunch of resources. So they will be available as part of that PDF that we will have available for you on the website. So with all that said, Emily, we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to you, and I'm going to maybe hop in here and there if we have questions, but I'm going to just let you run with it. If you don't mind telling us a little bit about why this is a topic that interests you, I always like to have that personal note if we can.
Sure. So adrenal fatigue has interested me in that lots of people complain about being tired, and I've experienced that, excuse me, through raising kids and working and the stresses of life. And no matter what I did, I didn't feel like I could bounce back. And like many, maybe your thyroid tested fine, so you wonder why your energy might not be up. And so when I learned about adrenal fatigue, to find out more about the body and other areas that can really have an impact on your energy level.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, I wanted to already hop in because I just recently went to the doctor in the last 2 weeks for my, physical or whatnot. And he asked me while I was in there, how's the energy? And I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. I just told him it wasn't like I'd like it, which is often the case. But when I reviewed my notes or the online, your medical notes that they make about you, he had clicked that as fatigue as one of my, complaints. So anyway, I think I'm normal. I think a lot of people have it, but just like you, busy life, busy kids, job, the whole thing. So anyway, I'm excited for what you're going to teach us.
All right. Well, adrenal fatigue, it's becoming, I think, a little more common to hear. It's been the diagnosis per se, or that term has been around for quite a while, but the kind of general or basic medical field doesn't always acknowledge it, and we'll talk more about that later. But adrenal fatigue can cause constant exhaustion. It can just the body feeling worn down. So we're going to talk about what you can do to heal and kind of re-energize the body. So first we need to understand what the adrenal glands are, which is why it's adrenal fatigue. Adrenal glands are two small glands about the size of large grapes, and they sit over your kidneys. They're located towards the back of your body and near the bottom of your ribs on each side of your spine. So very small, but very important, and have a big impact on our bodies. They produce hormones that help the body to cope with stress and to survive. They can produce over 50 hormones in the body. And this requires a lot of energy and a lot of nutrients and proper nutrition in order to produce all of those. If you think about the thyroid glands, they produce not even that many of the hormones that the adrenals, so these have a big impact.
Emily, I think we sometimes underestimate or undervalue the impact of hormones on our body, which really, maybe we just don't understand it as well, right? They're a little more vague, but it's nice to notice that all of these things that we do, lifestyle and whatnot, that you'll get into, do impact our hormones and the hormone production and balance in our body.
Correct. Hormones handle our thoughts, our sleep cycles, the way we react to stress, the strength of our muscles. There's huge impact of the hormones in our body. All right, so now that we know what the adrenals are and their function, what is adrenal fatigue? So it's a condition where the stress response system of our body is functioning, but not optimally. The adrenal glands might be producing hormones, but they're not able to keep up with the demands of the body and the levels that the body needs to be made. And you can kind of compare it to a car stuck in a low gear trying to drive down the highway. It's just not quite being able to transition into that next level of functioning. And the main symptom of fatigue, actually, people just say, well, I need more sleep. But when our adrenals are in that level of fatigue, sleep really doesn't help. There's other things that are needed. So a group of related signs and symptoms that result when the adrenal glands, they are functioning below the level. And a lot of times this is affected by stress and prolonged times of stress, which unfortunately we're faced with from day to day. And so sometimes that stress isn't something we can take away, so we need to in turn do something to bolster that. It can leave a feeling of unwellness, tiredness, or gray feelings. And we most often see people that experience adrenal fatigue using coffee, colas, carbohydrates, sugars, those instant energies to try to get through the day. So what are some causes of adrenal fatigue? We've addressed, obviously, that stress could be a culprit and a contributor. And whether it's severe, repeated, or constant stress in life, the adrenals have to respond. Even if it's positive stress, we think of stress we get from exercise. Even that can wear down the adrenals. So it's important that we watch the intensity at which we exercise too. And the body's trying to remain in homeostasis, which is kind of an equilibrium with everything functioning just right. But if the adrenals can't respond adequately, then there's some degree of adrenal fatigue. Now, I'd like to focus on that degree. So you can have a whole graph, like you have some people at the top of the graph extreme, you have other people that are maybe in just the beginning stages, depending on their habits and what we'll talk about later. So, and with everyone having some stress, everyone to some degree is in a bit of adrenal fatigue. The adrenal glands are functioning, but not well enough, as we said, to maintain that homeostasis and produce the hormones that are needed.
Okay, Emily, so I did a coaching call this morning with someone who's undergoing, a lot of stress, and he described himself like this picture to me when I was, when he was talking about how he's feeling and his lifestyle and his routines. I mean, he's undergoing some constant stress both at work and with personal life, health, and whatnot. So at this point, do you feel like you're probably talking about everyone, which probably is why you discussed the degrees, right?
Yes, as I mentioned, everybody is at some level. Even if you feel you're coping well with your stress, there's still stress on your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And stress is okay. It motivates us to, do things and be productive and get things done. It's about that level and the balance and how much.
Right, and how we react to that stress and, what we do to our bodies during that stressful time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we can talk a little bit about the chronic stress and where it can come from, and whether it's chronic or a single stress, like you just know you have, one important presentation to make that one day or whatever it may be, or it's ongoing stress with family and such. But chronic stress can also be caused by disease, illnesses, reoccurring infections, if you regularly get allergies even, or a constant cold. Physical stress, such as surgery, poor nutrition, addiction, or an injury. Emotions and psychological stress. And there can also be environmental stresses, which come from toxic chemicals, pollutants, all the additives that we have in our food these days and the processing that goes on.
Emily, I think of these, number 3 probably is what a lot of us deal with the most, right? Interpersonal stress or work or life, and probably number two. I had a participant just entered a question about like the 5-hour energy drinks. Are those, I mean, that's probably considered part of the poor nutrition, and maybe that does contribute to adrenal fatigue. Do you want to address that here, or do you want to ground out to that later?
Oh, sure, we can address that here. That's a great point. Yes, the 5-hour energy, it's a quick rush of caffeine that overstimulates the body, and then once it's processed through, the body just crashes. So in no way has it really healed or given the body true energy by good functioning per se. It's just kind of give a quick fix, if that makes sense. So if you kind of think about even riding a bike up a hill. So if you're riding the bike up the hill, by the time you get up that steep hill, you're going to be worn out. Your muscles are fatigued, and probably has a hard time continuing to go, and it needs some time to recover. And that's kind of what happens to the adrenals or the body when we give that quick caffeine fix. It rushes it up, and then the body has to try to recover and figure out, okay, what do I do now on my own now that I don't have that?
Right. I think that's something a lot of us get into because we get, just to meet the demands of the day, we get overdone, we get tired, overscheduled, and we're like, I need something now. And so those energy drinks sure are something people turn to. But it does, I guess, provide additional stress on the body rather than helping it handle stress better. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So here's some ways to kind of tell if you have adrenal fatigue, which, as I mentioned, really everybody has one. So this might be a way to determine kind of at what varying degree you might have it. And so look at some of these. We may notice unexplained fatigue or tiredness, especially in the morning, in the mid-afternoon. I think we've all felt that need for a mid-afternoon pick-me-up to finish out the day. You might feel run down, overwhelmed, maybe even foggy thoughts. You're not able to think clearly and process very well. Difficulty bouncing back from stress or illness. It takes longer to recover from that. Difficulty getting up in the morning, even after a full night's sleep. You're still feeling like you didn't rest. You may crave salt or sweet snacks. And you may feel more awake and energetic after 6 p.m. than you do earlier in the day. And that has to do with the cortisol and sugar levels with hormones that happens as the rhythms go throughout the day. Here are some simple self-tests that you could even identify more of the adrenal fatigue versus just those symptoms. So one thing you can do is to test your blood pressure when you're sitting and then also when you're standing. When you stand, your blood pressure should be higher than when you're sitting because it takes more work for your body to pump the blood against gravity, right, than it does when you're sitting. If your body's not able to increase that blood pressure when standing, shows that, again, it's tied to the adrenals and the function there. You can take your temperature. It should be at 98.6 when you wake in the morning. If the temperature is lower, that can be a sign that your adrenals and even some of your thyroid isn't working well or accurately. Another is a pH test. You can get little slips from the pharmacy where you test your pH in your saliva. And if it's in the acidic range, that can be a sign of the adrenals and also your digestive system, your gut not being healthy. Another is a calf squeeze. You put a blood pressure cuff around your calf muscle and increase the pressure to 140 and then slowly release that pressure. If you get a cramp or pain is present at or before the 140, this can be a sign that your magnesium and calcium is low in your body, or your body's not really absorbing what you're taking in. And that affects muscle use, just your strength and function. Another common thing we see is if your adrenals are in fatigue is that there's quite a bit of night waking or that you don't sleep soundly, which affects the fatigue that we feel, especially before 4 a.m. That's when the body normal cycle would release some cortisol, which helps with blood sugars. So if you notice that you do that quite a bit, one thing that might help is to have a small amount of protein about 30 minutes before you go to bed. Obviously not something big that takes a while to digest, but it could be like cottage cheese, peanut butter with toast, something like that, and see if that helps you to sleep through the night a little bit better.
Emily, I hear this complaint fairly often actually from participants when I'm talking to them through coaching calls, that they have this happen to them, this night waking. They fall asleep exhausted and they're only able to stay asleep for a while, and then probably around that 4 a.m. time frame they wake up and they can't fall back asleep, and it starts that anxiety like, oh, I'm gonna have a long day if I don't get any more sleep, and it's tough. And I've suggested this tip to several people who have found it helpful to have a small serving of protein. So it's a good thing. And I honestly did not know that that was a symptom or sign of adrenal fatigue. So this will help me even more as we talk.
That's probably one of the number one changes I made initially when I started working on myself, and I noticed a big difference for me.
Yeah, it's a great simple tip that can make a huge difference, because if you can sleep, you can handle anything, it seems. Without sleep, everything's hard. So
right. Problems grow when you're tired.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that we understand a little bit about what it is, some things that can cause it, how we can kind of look for those symptoms, how do we heal? It might seem overwhelming, especially when you're tired. You don't want to take on one more thing. We'll give you some resources that have specific recipes and really nutrient-dense ideas to help get back. But we're going to talk really some basics. And unfortunately, it's a lot the same that we hear of taking care of our body, which is important, but can be challenging through these stressful times. So I encourage you to maybe just take one change or recommendation and try to implement it, and then build from there. Don't try to do all of these suggestions all at once. That's going to add stress and defeat the purpose of what we're working towards. So as we've talked about, an unhealthy lifestyle is how most people slip into adrenal fatigue. And as bad as it can make people feel, the right kind of therapy is nearly always successful. And we don't want you to get to that really extreme phase of adrenal fatigue before you start doing something, or it takes a lot longer to recover. So lifestyle modification, stress management, adjusting our diet, sometimes some nutritional supplements can help restore the energy. As we mentioned earlier, it can be difficult sometimes to find a doctor familiar with the treatment. Doctors who identify themselves as holistic practitioners are more likely to treat adrenal fatigue and talk a little bit more about it. And they'll be maybe more familiar with using the diet and lifestyle changes recommended.
Emily, why is that? Is this kind of just new on the scene? Is it not quite recognized yet? Is it just too specific? Because often when you go to your regular doctor and say you're tired, they'll check your vitamin D, they'll check your thyroid. What else? Why do you think this is true?
I don't think that it's new on the scene. I think that it's been around, since people were using herbs, from their garden to treat their illnesses. It's just a different spectrum. I think mainstream doctors, they have these medicines that they're supposed to prescribe. And that's, give a medicine, it'll take care of it. And not many doctors look always at the lifestyle, things that people are doing day to day, if that makes sense, and going for the more of the natural perspective.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And lifestyle is such a big player in this, and in a lot of things, but particularly in this. And so that's why a holistic practitioner who will investigate that with you is probably a really good route to take.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's first talk about the lifestyle modification. This can help, of course, with your stress management. Look for ways to decrease your stress level, minimize your commitments, try to simplify where you can. Create a minimum of 2 hours free time daily. That 2 hours sounds like a big chunk of time, I know, to many of us. But it may not even come at one big chunk, even if you can give yourself a few minutes here or there to just let your mind escape, or maybe you do need to get out for a walk with some fresh air. That accumulative time can make a difference. Eliminate emotional stressors. If there's possible people or relationships that are causing those stresses, maybe it's time to, figure those out, or separate if you can for a time. Sleep late whenever possible. Wouldn't we all love this? Some recommend that you sleep in past 9 a.m. And I know for many of us that's not very possible, but it's recommended when possible. Exercise moderately daily. The moderately is in there because too extreme of exercise can actually increase the adrenal fatigue. Again, we don't want to put too great of strain on the body, so make sure you're balancing your exercise intensity. Laugh as much as possible. Laughter is a medicine. Feeling that joy can help decrease the stress that we feel. And try different therapeutic sessions like massage, acupuncture, aromatherapy, chiropractic care. I even throw in natural oils. There's some of those that help with relaxation, just putting some on your drops on your wrist. People have found relief there.
I'm going to tell my husband that I need 2 hours of free time daily and to sleep tonight. I can't wait to tell him this later.
Yes, as I mentioned, this is optimal, right? For many of us, we can't do everything on that list right now. So just, take 1 or 2 that you feel you can do.
Perfect.
And those would be at the top of my list too, but I don't think I'm going to get those right now. So the next we look at our nutrition. Of course, it's critical. You may have heard you are what you eat. You put garbage in, you're going to give garbage out. You're not going to have what you need to put out. I often, refer to our bodies even like a car. If you're driving a diesel truck and you put regular gasoline in, it's not going to last very long. So you got to make sure you get the right fuel into your body and into your tank. So a nutritionally inadequate diet would include high sugar, caffeine, junk food, highly processed foods, and for some it may even be grains or dairy. You may have some sensitivities that aren't necessarily allergies, but sensitivities to certain foods that aren't keeping the system running correctly either. And that can place stress on the body and the adrenal glands. And at the same time, they're not getting the nutrients that the adrenals need to function. And then also the body can become more vulnerable to adrenal fatigue when you get more stress. So if you can kind of see, it's a cycle. If we're not feeding it right, the adrenals are under stress. We feel stress, we're tired, and so forth. And one thing I wanted to point out too is, I don't know if many of you have felt, you go through a stressful time and you might not be sick at all. You just rush, you push through it. And then like the day after or the week after that stressful situation ends, you get a cold or you get sick. And it's because the body's in that fight or flight phase where it's protecting the body. And then once that stress goes down, the body kind of lets down its guard, and then all of that infection or the immune system is really vulnerable at that time. So just kind of an interesting take on stress and how our body reacts.
Emily, when talking about nutrition, this might be a good place for a question that came in a little bit ago, and it was about, well, there's actually 2 questions. One is about pre-workout drinks. I mean, we talked about caffeine. What about using a pre-workout? Would that cause additional strain on the adrenals? Do you know, what would you say on that?
I'd say look at the quality of the pre-workout shake. Avoid ones that do have caffeine. Make sure it's a quality protein that's in there, balanced with fat. You typically want your carbohydrate to protein ratio and fat to be 4:1 on those. Again, just look at the quality of it. That would be the biggest takeaway, I think. Because a lot of times you do, especially if you have a more intense workout, it's good to have something in your system as you get exercising.
Right, perfect. That's what would be my thoughts too. And then also, what about adrenal extract. Mixed reactions to that, or what are your thoughts there?
I don't know too much about the extracts, and it would depend on like where it's produced and where it comes from. So that would be definitely something to check with that practitioner and make sure that it's the right level for you.
Right. And that's probably, I mean, we're going to talk about the supplements that are recommended in a minute, but the same idea there, like the amounts and which ones are probably better to run past your practitioner and get a personal recommendation rather than a general when it comes to that. So great, thanks.
So looking at some nutritional changes that can help, make sure each time you're eating that you combine a protein, healthy fat, and a fiber, which could also be an unrefined carbohydrate with each time you're eating. That helps to balance the sugar levels, which in turn helps keep the cortisol or stress hormone in balance as well. They're very intertwined. And it is in the references we've read, the recommendation is that some protein should come from animal protein. You can get quite a bit from plant protein, of course, but there's just something in the animal protein that can bolster the adrenals. Daily consumption of plant-based fats and oils like avocados, oils, olive oil. It's recommended that you eat before 10 a.m. and again before noon, so not a long period or stretch between when you're eating these meals. And I would even say try to eat within 30 minutes of waking up for your metabolism to get going and to end that fast, essentially. Consume 5 to 6 vegetable servings per day. Avoid fruit in the morning. Again, that has to do with higher sugar content in the fruit. Not that it's bad for you, but again, it affects those cortisol levels that are trying to adjust as you've woken in the morning. Chew your food 30 times. Helps with your digestion and absorption. Actually, those with adrenal fatigue, we find, as we mentioned, you're craving salty foods. And so it's a need for salt. So you can actually add a little bit of salt to your drinking water to help aid that. And then again, as we talked, avoid the junk food and unhealthy foods that we know we probably shouldn't take in. Here's a list of supplements that are recommended. Again, check with that doctor or practitioner for the individual dosage for you. There's niacin. You can look through these different ones. They help with enzymes, with tissue repair. Helps, the Krebs cycle is with energy, so that helps with the stress recovery. There's antioxidants there, things that help promote sleep and muscle relaxing. So that's magnesium that's helpful at bedtime. Again, mostly just to bolster and support those adrenals. Now the big question, how long will it take to recover? Can I just do this and overnight you'll be feeling 100%, right? Unfortunately, it's taken however old you are, really, it's taken you that long to get into the state that you are. So just think that it is going to take time to recover. And so here you can see mild, moderate, and severe, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years or longer, depending on how severe your adrenal fatigue is, how consistent you're able to do with the healing steps, and how your body reacts. Everybody is very different, but be patient with it. If we get frustrated, again, that adds to the stress and it's just not helping what we're trying to accomplish. Most people feel better, even though you'll feel improvements between 4 to 6 weeks. So don't stop there. Keep going, because you never realize how good you can feel until you feel better, until you get that body feeling even better than it has before. And then, hopefully that motivates you to continue with those healthy lifestyle habits as well.
This is great. I feel like I bet everybody can relate to the stress that was described in the beginning of the presentation, and hopefully we have a little hope that from some modification to our lifestyle, we can start to feel better and combat that a little bit.
Okay. So kind of recap what we've talked about today. It is about a healthy lifestyle, and many things common that we've heard or we know we should do. But know that there is hope, that if you can make a few of these changes, it's not just about losing weight. Many people find as they do this, they do lose weight. Their body recovers and it functions correctly. So whatever your goal is, starting to build your energy, think about what more you can accomplish and how better you can feel while you're doing it. So we know that the adrenal glands play a critical role in the body with producing those hormones. Chronic stress can affect it, and we can feel constant exhaustion when we're in that adrenal fatigue. But there's hope. With time and a balance of a healthy routine, your energy, vitality, motivation, all of that can come back. And here are the resources that we mentioned. If you want to learn more, again, see more in depth than what we were able to cover today, but hopefully we sparked some interest, let you know that you do have control on your health and the impact you can make through these steps, and learn more about your body. I think as we understand more about what goes on, what to utilize, we can have more of an impact personally than we know.
Thank you so much, Emily, for this informative webinar today. I feel like this is something a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more involved than we typically cover, and I'm really glad. I was excited to have this be one of our topics for this series. So thank you so much for doing that. We thank everyone for joining us today, and like I say, watch for your points, and this will be available to you. If you have any questions, we're happy to follow up with you over the phone or email if you need, or if you want to talk to one of our coaches here at Orient, we could hook you up with that. So anyway, thanks for coming. Our next month's webinar will be coming up in June, and we've got a professional running coach who's going to be talking to us a little bit about training and running and whatnot. So it's going to be a good time as well. So watch for that. And I guess we'll go ahead and say goodbye for this month. Thanks again for joining us.